Welcome back to the Fourth and Long podcast where your championship advice comes at no price. Today is Thursday, September 15th. I'm here with my co-host Paul Collins, and my name is Nate Young, and we are ready for the game tonight, aren't we, Paul?
Yes, sir. A lot of fantasy implications in tonight's game. Two of the most high-powered offenses. This game could be very electric for fantasy and just overall NFL, is scoring-wise too.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to see this. It should be a very high-scoring and fun game. But before we get into that, let's start with some news, and then we'll get into the Thursday night breakdown a little bit later. Um, the first piece of news we have today is that Ertz is expected to play. Right? Sorry, I
Yeah,
said that wrong, but he's expected to play in full, so he should be back. So
yeah. He didn't practice today, or he didn't practice as in Wednesday, but he should expect it to be full Thursday, so he should be able to play this week. But it's definitely one to monitor for sure.
yep. Apologies for that. I had a little brain fart there, but moving on to DeAndre Swift, he did not practice Wednesday, so he did not practice yesterday, but I think he will play in week 2. A lot of times teams will do this with guys that got a lot of carries and a lot of work. They'll give him the day off on Wednesday. He did have ankle issues, but I don't think it's anything severe. I don't think there's anything to worry about here. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I think a report came out. I just seen too that he is suggesting that he's going to play in week 2. There's another guy we're going to talk about here in just a second. And like you said on Wednesday, typically Wednesdays kind of rest for like the veteran days. But Swift isn't like a veteran, but he's going to be treated like that just because of his injury history. So I wouldn't freak out too much with it only being Wednesday.
Yeah. And he looked great too. Didn't he?
Yes, he did. Got a
Sadly,
couple vulture TDs.
yeah.
Jamal
Imagine,
Williams.
imagine if he wasn't vultured, dude. He would have a 40-point day like that.
Yeah, he'd be the RB1 overall
Yeah.
going into week 2.
He would be
That's
Christian
for sure.
McCaffrey if he didn't
Literally.
get vultured by Jamal Williams. That's just the truth. So
Because he scored a touchdown, I believe, too. So that would have been like a 3 TD day. And I'm pretty sure the one touchdown he like ran for like 60 yards, and Jamal Williams just finished the drive because he was gassed. Just unfortunate.
yeah. Moving on to Ken Walker. He's practicing in full week 2
Yes.
and should be expected, I think, to play against week 2 against the 49ers, or is he still limited?
It looks like he is practicing ahead of week 2 before the 49ers, like you said, and it looks like he's gonna play. Just hopefully he can get in a couple more practice days leading up to Sunday. But I love seeing this as a Ken Walker, holding on to Ken Walker. So I hope to see something Sunday, man. Just split backfield something. I just want something to be encouraged about going into week 3 for Ken Walker.
Yeah, I think honestly this might hurt the Rashad Penny versus Kenton Walker news. I think it just hurts both of them. I know you're a little higher on the Seattle Ken Walker run game in the future, but I just feel like Rashad Penny's still gonna have a role in that offense, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
that it'll kind of just take away from him, and I'm avoiding the Seahawks offense, but who knows? I know you like him because he was drafted fairly high, and if he is the running back that he was in college, he was great. He was honestly my favorite running back coming out of the draft. So if he gets the
Yeah,
opportunities, I think he will succeed with them. So
for sure.
um, Julio Jones knee injury did not practice Wednesday, um, and I know you found a quote about this, Paul. That
Yeah. So basically it's one of those things, like I said, it's Wednesday, but it's definitely one we're gonna look back on, look as the weeks go on to Sunday, because if Julio Jones misses and Chris Godwin's already projected to miss, this is gonna be a rough start for Brady if you have him in fantasy. They're playing the Saints this week. The Saints have played him tough every game he's been there since he came to Tampa. Brady would be at outside the top 10 quarterback if Julio can't play, and he might already be playing the Saints this week. So it just make it even harder for him.
yeah, I'm definitely not looking Brady as I'm not looking forward to starting Brady this week. If you drafted him, he might. I wouldn't be starting. I don't know if I'd be starting Carson Wentz over Brady. I don't. That's
Yeah,
tough.
that's a
That's a
tough
tough
call.
decision
That's a
to
tough
make.
call.
Yeah, because the matchup's there for Wentz, and he looked good last week. But Brady. Yeah, I don't know. He had a tough time with the Cowboys, and without his best receivers, yeah, you might look to load him off or sit him on your bench this week and start someone like Wentz that you talked about in last episode.
Yeah. Me personally, I have Brady in a league, and I'm not fading away from the GOAT. I'm just gonna roll him out there, and I'm living and dying by Tom Brady. I'm not gonna bet against him. I'm just
Which
not.
most of in our entire lifetimes that's worked out most of the time. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that was the news. We wanted to move on to our Thursday night breakdown. It's the Chiefs versus Chargers. Over under is 54.5 points, and the spread is
Wow.
Chiefs by 4 points.
The Chiefs have been notorious for not being able to cover the spread. Like I seen last year, they had a really bad record against the spread. So I wonder how this game's gonna play out.
Yeah,
Over under 54.5.
I don't think this is a hate on the Chiefs being ability to score points. I think it's an overreaction to how many points they score, which causes their over under to be so high that they don't hit it. Like I still think it's going to be a high scoring game either way. I just don't know if it gets to an insanely high amount of 54.5. I hope it does. I'm always down for I'm always here for the points. So.
Oh yeah. Two higher powered offenses like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very possible. Like realistically.
Yeah, and with that being said, that many points, two high-powered offense, you're obviously starting Herbert, you're obviously starting Mahomes, you're starting Eckler, you're starting Travis Kelce. These are without questions. I do think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a good start to have in this matchup. I think they're going to look to pass the ball a ton, and he seems to be the pass-catching back, established. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco might have been a look at this week, but he didn't really get into the offense until the second half when they were already killing him. It was pretty much Clyde the majority of the time when the game was still semi-reasonable. So I think they are looking to him to be the RB1. And a lot of times when you lose your number one receiver, the targets go to the running back. Like that's a common thing to happen with teams. So Tyreek Hill leaving, maybe Clyde's share just keeps going up, and he's a good option for fantasy. So I do like him as a flex option this week.
Yeah, and like if you're a team that just lost Elijah Mitchell, and then like you have Najee Harris already like banged up, Clyde could be an RB2 for you this week, and I feel like you could be really comfortable starting him in your RB2 under the circumstances of your own roster. You just gotta evaluate your whole roster as a whole.
Absolutely. And what's your thoughts on Juju this week?
Juju I'm so worried. I don't want to start any Kansas City receiver in this matchup if I don't have to. But I feel like if there is one you want to start, it is Juju. That's for sure. I mean, week 1 he had 8 targets. That's a high target volume in a Patrick Mahomes led offense. So if you have to start Juju, I'm not totally against it. I feel like he's more of like a wide receiver 3 flex play this week for me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have Juju in your lineup and you need a flex, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. I mean, it is 54.5 point spread. If they do hit the over, he's going to have points. And, it's hard to – he's the wide receiver 1 in the Chiefs offense. No matter how much they spread the ball around, that should have value at some point in time, especially when the amount of points being scored is going to be so high. So, I don't think it's a worse option if you have to start him in your flex,
I think this is a good reminder, too, to take out your Thursday players out of your flex. Like, even though we say start them in your flex, take them out of your flex just in case. Don't lock up that flex spot just in case you have injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Forgot to mention that. That's perfect. Yeah, so if you're starting Clyde or you're starting Juju, take them and put them in your RB2 or your wide receiver 1. Don't put them in your flex, basically.
Right. Even though we say they're like a flex play, that doesn't necessarily you have to start them in your flex. They're just like the third option on your roster as it turns like wide receiver 1, 2, then flex.
Because if you're putting Clyde in your flex and then your RB2 gets injured or something going into the week, then you have to start a running back. But if you put Clyde in your RB2 and then he gets injured, you have the option to start a receiver as well. So that's why we go in depth. So going on to Mike Williams, I know he had a bad week 1. I think you're starting him no matter what. You drafted him high. Keenan Allen's out. High scoring matchup. I think he's going to rebound this week and have a great week.
Everything's pointing up for Mike Williams this week. Don't overreact. It's 1 week. Start him. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're in deeper leagues and really need a flex option, I think Josh Palmer is a good dart there as well. I think he has the ability to be good in this offense. He was for a fair amount of games last season, and without Keenan Allen, I think he's going to take up a lot of that role. And again, high-scoring matchup, you kind of want options in this game. Someone's got to catch the ball to get those points. So.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. He was on the field a lot more than that. Who was the third wide receiver that the Chargers have?
DeAndre Carter, I believe.
Yeah,
DeAndre Carter. DeAndre
I don't
Carter.
know the exact stat I seen, but he was basically that Joshua Palmer was on the field way more percentage wise than Carter. So if you're looking at this team for a wide receiver, definitely Palmer over Carter. Carter's not a question for me. I'm leaving him on the waiver wire.
Yep. And that being said, because of the exact reasons we said before, I'm taking Gerald Everett is my. I know we talked about in the waiver. Well, he talked about in the waiver wire episode, but he's going to be my tight end stream of the week if I had to. I think Gerald Everett, with Keenan Allen being out and the amount of points being scored, I think this gives you your best shot of getting some points and getting some targets and maybe a touchdown. Out of anyone else on the waiver wire.
And he should see, like him and Joshua Palmer, realistically, like naturally, you're going to see an uptick in targets when a guy like Keenan Allen's out of the lineup that demands targets. I feel like Gerald Everett's a fine play this week if you need to stream the tight end position for sure.
That being said, that was our Thursday night breakdown. We're going to finish it with a couple scenarios. We're going to give a couple yardage numbers and let you know what we think about the over and under for the game. Austin Eckler is projected 39.5 receiving yards. Ball. Are you going the over or under on this one?
I debated on this the whole time since we added it before the show. I personally am going to take the under. Just looking at it without like thinking about it too hard, 39.5 seems like an awful lot of receiving yards. I know Austin Eckler's playmaking ability; he could easily get this on like a couple plays. But if you just look at Week 1, he only had 4 receptions for 36 yards. So I mean, the way Herbert played the Week 1, he spread the ball around a little bit more. So I feel like they're going to be less reliant on Eckler catching passes out of the backfield the way Herbert spread it around Week 1. I don't think this changes Week 2, so I personally am going to take the under on this.
Really, yeah, that surprises me. I'm going the over for sure for me because, like you just said, 4 receptions for 36 yards.
36 yards.
That's just not Austin Eckler. He gets more than 4 receptions most of the time. That's what he's known for. That's why he's there. Herbert has the connection in the past. I think this was a down game for him, and I think this will improve. I think in order for the Chargers to keep up in this game, they're going to have to score points. In order to score points, I think they're going to have to throw the ball. And that being said, I think Eckler's a good option, especially with Keenan Allen being out. I think he's going to take up a lot of that role too. So I like the over for 39.5 for me.
Yeah.
Going on to Juju, over under 60.5 receiving yards.
Damn, this one seems a little high too. It's just something about Juju this year I'm just very weird on. I mean, in Week 1 he did hit it, like he caught 79 receiving yards. So I mean, if you're seeing that many targets, he had 8 targets Week 1. I feel like you're bound to hit the over 60 mark. But that being said, if I had to bet on this, I'll go with the over on this one. Without putting too much thought into it, I think I'll take the over 60.5 yards, receiving yards for Juju.
Yeah, I think I'll take the over too. And I mean, honestly, the reasoning is because that game was weird. They scored a lot of their points very early in the game. So, Who knows? If Cardinals were competitive and they were really actively throwing the ball throughout the game, Isaiah Pacheco was in most of the game, the second half, because they were up by so much. They weren't playing a lot of their most of their starters for a lot of the second half of the game. If Juju had the entire game and they were actively throwing the ball, trying to keep it competitive, which I think the Chargers can do, I mean, he could have a really good season this year. I think his numbers could significantly improve because, like you said, he already had 79 yards, and that was in a first half of the game essentially. So.
Yeah, and I think we both can agree this game should be a lot closer than what it was Week 1 for the Chiefs. So.
I mean, it has to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that Cardinals game, that was just a plain blowout. Wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what you're reasoning, I think you kind of persuaded me a little bit more on this for sure. The over. In a blowout game, he still managed that. So I like it. I like Juju over this week. I think we can both like it.
I think taking a note from last week too of how bad the Cardinals secondary is and how bad they will be. I mean, I'm not saying the Chiefs are awesome. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to compare. Everyone's not going to score like the Chiefs are. But I mean, that is not a matchup I'm scared of. They lost a lot of their pass rushers. They lost Chandler Jones, and I don't know if J.J. Watt is healthy or not, but he's well past his prime anyway if he isn't. And They don't have the same pass rush. They don't have a good secondary. I think that's a defense that can be carved up. So if you have your receivers against a match with the Cardinals, I would not be scared to start them. I mean, I think that's a positive.
That's gonna be something we're gonna have to keep an eye on all year. I think J.J. Watt was out, but I feel like that doesn't change too much of what happened on Sunday.
No.
But yeah, I like that. I like that idea of potentially looking at that moving forward.
Yeah, might have some spot starts there against that bad secondary. So
yeah,
that was
they
their
go up
third.
against the Raiders. Oh, sorry, they go up against the Raiders this week, so we'll see. They have plenty of options to tear up that Cardinals defense.
Gosh, well, Devontae Adams should go off again, knowing that.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. But who do you think is going to win this game, Paul?
After it's all said and done, I feel like this game. I feel like the Chargers are going to try to avoid losing this to the Chiefs early. I think I'm going to go with the Chargers. Just a gut feeling. I think the Chargers will win this game.
Think so?
Yeah.
I think this is the Pat Mahomes, not revenge tour, but in a way. After that AFC Championship loss to the Bengals, heartbreaking. They got a lot of crap. Everyone was talking the Bengals up all offseason and things like that. I think you kind of hit everyone's talking about Josh Allen and how good he is and how he's no doubt the number one. A lot of people are saying things like that. And everyone's saying, oh, what the Chiefs offense going to be like without Tyreek Hill? I think there's a lot. Weirdly enough, knowing how good they are the last 10 years, they're somehow creating an underdog story. And I do not like to hear Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid with an underdog story.
It is weird, ain't it? Like, that's kind of how it's been. Like, the Pat Mahomes underdog story. It's kind of weird.
You don't hear the Pat Mahomes no-look throws anymore. Like, it was used to be Pat Mahomes, and then there was a tier of everyone else. You just talk about Pat. And it's not like that anymore. I think he's getting a little tired of it. I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of used that as fuel, a little bulletin board material to get out there and have an insane season. Because, I mean, he could have left that game way earlier than he did the Cardinals. And just still threw 5 touchdowns, not caring, going after him. It was almost a statement in my mind. So,
and they're back on their play style, throwing underhand passes to Clyde, like little ditch passes, like.
It just seems easy.
The Chiefs just get in their bag, man, and it's just hard to stop. It's fun to watch, though. I love watching it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Travis Kelce is going to be just – he didn't miss a beat. I mean, he's just awesome. Just awesome. So, going into our last segment, which is going to be essentially who would you rather have is what it is, and that is who would you rather have the rest of the season. Pretty simple. So I'm going to start with mine. Paul, would you rather have DJ Moore or Amon-Ra St. Brown the rest of the season?
Man, I like both these guys, but I've looked at it, debated it back and forth. Personally, for me, I think I'd rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just looking at week 1, how it played out, and I may be overreacting a little bit, but the way Robbie Anderson was involved in this offense is kind of damning to me. I mean, week 1 he had 8 targets, and I talked about it yesterday on the episode. Baker Mayfield may have found his man. Like, you know what I mean? This isn't the same quarterback anymore with DJ Moore, how he's had Sam Darnold all this time, and he's somewhat succeeded with Sam Darnold. I just worry that Baker Mayfield might have found his man in Robbie Anderson, and Robbie Anderson could eat into DJ Moore's fantasy value a little bit more than what we hope for. And I think in Amon-Ra St. Brown, he still picked up where he left off last year. 8 receptions for 64 yards and a tutty, 12 targets. Like, say what you want about this Lions offense, they're going to be behind in games, and that bodes well for Amon-Ra St. Brown, the game script-wise. So I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown rest of the season over DJ Moore.
I mean, I like it, honestly. It's crazy to think we're saying this. I mean, these are two guys that weren't even looked at as the same type of receiver entering the year. But, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown is just – he's in an offense, in my opinion, that's going to throw the ball a ton more. The Swift's value is catching passes. That team is going to be down in almost every game, and they're going to just be – and they don't give up. That's the thing. When they're down, Dan Campbell and that philosophy, they're willing to throw the ball to the last second, until they try to come back. And it leads to Amon-Ra St. Brown getting 12 targets, and it leads to – he's also has the ability to score touchdowns. Like, DJ Moore, like, he's got to get 12 targets, but then I feel like he's never been a red zone guy. I mean, he gets like 4 touchdowns a season. It's like, so I'm taking the guy that has going to get more targets and honestly an offense that I think might be able to move the ball more because that Panthers offense did not look good and has the ability to score near the red zone. So
And I think I kind of talked about this yesterday. Christian McCaffrey, he wasn't in full Christian McCaffrey role yet. So I mean, he could eat into more targets and take away from DJ Moore. I mean, he only had 4 receptions for 24 yards. We're known of McCaffrey to take over a little bit more. He had 14 total touches. I feel like that's a down week, way down week for McCaffrey. So McCaffrey wasn't even in full form yet. I feel like that's something to note with DJ Moore.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think DJ Moore is a fade this season. I'm not on the buy low DJ Moore train. I mean, honestly, if you get him for nothing, I would. I think he still has a value in his offense. I think he's still the wide receiver 1, but I like Amon-Ra a lot this year, actually. I think if you have him as your wide receiver 2, he's going to be solid the whole season. So,
yeah. Jumping into mine, question for you. Rest of the season, would you rather have Deontay Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers or Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders?
You know, I started thinking Terry McLaurin 100%, right? That's where I came in thinking. And then I started to question, because it's really the question of, do you want the guy that is going to give you consistent points every week? He's going to get the targets. He's going to get catches. But he's probably not going to kill it ever. It's probably going to be 10 to 15, and that's Deontay Johnson. Whereas Terry McLaurin can take one pass 80 yards to the house. Like, that's what he brings to the table. And he still could be highly targeted. So I'm in a toss-up because I just think Deontay Johnson's a lot safer, but I'm taking Terry McLaurin. I think the Washington offense is going to be better than the Pittsburgh offense. Mitch Trubisky scares me a lot. I think that offense looked terrible, and I really don't want the product of that. I would rather have Terry McLaurin, or say what you want about Carson Wentz. I think he was better than the Haskins trials and things like Taylor Heineke attempts. I think he can produce value for his wide receivers. He did it with Michael Pittman last season. I think he can keep it up with Terry McLaurin. So believe it or not, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying I'm trusting the quarterback Carson Wentz over the quarterback Mitch Trubisky, which is hard to do to find someone to. It's hard to find trust in Carson Wentz over some other receiver. So
yeah, I was gonna ask you, does the way Curtis Samuel and DeAndre, what's his name? I'm completely drawing a blank.
Jahan Dotson.
Does Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel, like, production week 1, does that play a factor into Terry McLaurin long-term season? Like, his long-term season value for you?
No, this is why it doesn't. It's because I think that the last couple seasons, it's been bad offense, Terry McLaurin hyper-targets. That's how he gets his point. I think with Jahan Dotson I think he's a really good receiver, and I think Curtis Samuel in the backfield has something going. I think that offense will be significantly better this year than it was the last couple of years with those guys. So that's more opportunities in the more red zone, more opportunities to throw the ball. I mean, you saw Antonio Gibson came back week 1 and had more targets than he's ever had. You know, like that's just what this offense I think is going to bring, is the opportunity for more scoring because of how good those other guys are. So that is an age-old debate. You know, would you rather have our receivers taking away or making someone better? Because, I mean, that happened with Packers receivers forever. Like, there would be wide receivers, too, that were pretty good when Jordy Nelson was on the field. But when he got hurt, they could never produce by themselves. So it's the type of thing, like, having help from the other side where you're not getting double teamed and you're not the sole focal point of the offense can actually help a receiver. And I think this is the case with the Washington Commanders.
I mean, isn't it weird? I know it's week after week 1, but is it weird that we're talking about all of these different type of, like, assets to fantasy lineups from the Washington Commanders offense?
Yeah.
Like Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson there. Like, Carson Wentz is a guy that I even talked about yesterday. Like, you could probably pick him up and play if you have the Dak Prescott injury. Like, is it weird that we're talking about this many Commander players actually being viable for fantasy? I just find it so weird.
It's scary almost. It's really is.
Really?
You don't trusting Carson Wentz is tough, but he did produce fantasy value with the Colts. Like, there was, like, Michael Pittman was a good receiver last season. You know, like stuff like that. Like, I think he can. He's not a good quarterback, but he can produce fantasy points. You know, that is something. And guess what? You know what he does? He does the opposite of let me just make sure my team doesn't lose by not throwing interceptions. He throws a ton of interceptions, which is good for fantasy points for your wide receivers because they're gonna need to score points to be in the game because he's turning the ball over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jameis Winston was great for fantasy receivers. Why? Because he threw 30 touchdowns and threw 30 interceptions, making him have to throw a ton every game. So it's not always the worst thing in the world to have a guy that throws interceptions.
Yeah, I just went and looked too. Logan Thomas is back for that offense as well. He saw 6 targets, 3 for 45. I don't know how the receiving core will play out, but he's definitely a name that I'm looking at if you need help at the tight end position after this week. Could we see another good game from Logan Thomas?
Yeah.
I don't know. Last year he was my fantasy darling last year, but then I think he got hurt early in the year. I went into the season with Logan Thomas as my tight end. I remember him.
Yeah, I think Deontay Johnson's safe though. I'm not hating on Deontay Johnson. I think he's still going to get a ton of targets and be a safe wide receiver too. But I do like the upside a little more for Terry McLaurin. So
kind of similar situation too. Like now, they got like a 3-headed monster receiver with Johnson, Claypool, and Pickens. Kind of with the same with the Commanders, McLaurin, Dotson, and Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel's taking back carries out of the backfield like Claypool is. It's kind of a weird similarity. Both quarterbacks are kind of suspect.
Yeah.
It's a weird similarity. Like I didn't even when I made those 2 players as an option, I didn't even think about all that just till right now. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I think Wentz is a significant upgrade over Trubisky though.
Oh,
which is crazy to say. It shows you how bad Trubisky is at football because that shouldn't be a statement for an NFL quarterback. Because I think Carson Wentz is a bottom 5 NFL quarterback. So the ability to say that, you know what I mean? You have to be really bad. So anyway.
We seen Sunday, Steelers had 5. Joe Burrow turned the ball over 5 times, and the Steelers still won by 3 points in overtime, very last second. So what does that tell you?
And they should have won.
Can't move the ball. They shouldn't have won. No, absolutely not. They
because of missed field goals. So
yeah, Mr. Trubisky is just. Man,
Najee Harris, we'll bring up Najee Harris after that. I am scared to death from Najee Harris, dude. I do not.
Dude, it looks rough.
He did.
As a guy that needs. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Oh, I was gonna say, as a guy that needs volume to succeed, and he's already getting hurt. That's just damning, man.
Yeah, and
so damning.
He didn't get thrown the ball. That's what his whole career was. Ben is notorious for dumping to the running back, but Mitchell Trubisky wasn't even looking his way a lot of the times. He literally would have done nothing if he didn't score that touchdown. What did he get at 1 point, 2 points?
He had 23 rushing yards, so he would have had 2 points. Gosh. He had 2 receptions, 3 yards, 1 touchdown on that little wheel route that they threw to him.
I am trading whatever value I can for Najee right now.
Yeah, if there's any value left.
Yeah.
That's rough, man.
Yeah. I think earlier we had him in the bust category, didn't we? If I remember back to the episode, maybe not. Maybe it was someone else, but I thought.
He was just a guy that I was avoiding all draft season. I literally have him in 1 league, and it's a dynasty league, so I did not draft him anywhere.
Yeah, smart. Moving on to the last thing we'll talk about, which is a trade. Like we said, we'll always keep you updated on the trades. And I was actually involved in this trade, which is going to happen more this season, I promise.
Not a shocker.
I traded Nick Chubb, Chase Edmonds, and Allen Robinson for James Conner and Darnell Mooney. Paul.
Yeah, and I actually want to hear your reasoning on this because I feel like for your structured lineup, I feel like you explained it really well. On paper, I feel like you might have lost this trade, but for your specific lineup, I feel like you had a good reasoning for it.
Yeah, so I had Kareem Hunt sitting on the bench, right? I really do like Kareem Hunt this season. I think he's a fair option to play him in your flex, or if you have good receivers, you have to play him in your RP2. I don't mind it. And the issue I was having was I had Nick Chubb in the lineup, and I had Kareem Hunt versus Chase Edmonds sitting on the bench. I like Kareem Hunt over Chase Edmonds sitting on the bench. So my reasoning for doing this was I could trade Nick Chubb for James Conner, who I believe is a better running back. I think they're similar, but I do like I know we talked about it earlier, but he had 140 yards and got outscored by A.J. Dillon, who had 40, and he only had 1 touchdown. So it's if you're not catching passes, you're hurting yourself. You really like he has to have 120 yards or he had a bad week. Like maybe he gets some end zone looks, but Kareem Hunt vultures a lot of those. So it's like I don't like guys that have no pass catching work. So I do value James Conner higher than Nick Chubb, but not by a lot. But I do value Kareem Hunt over Chase Edmonds, and I like the upside of Darnell Mooney. So my thought process was get rid of Chase Edmonds, get rid of Allen Robinson, two guys that were essentially on my flex bench spot, and get a better flex and a better RB2 for my lineup. Because the other would have been sitting on my bench anyway. So
I think you want to reiterate too, when you said James Conner's better, you don't actually mean better in the NFL sense.
No.
But strictly for fantasy only.
If we're talking about NFL sense, I think Nick Chubb's a top 5 runner in the NFL.
In the NFL. Easy top 5.
That is not what I'm saying. But if you don't catch passes, it is very like Javonte Williams had 7 carries and had 13.5 points because he caught 11 balls. Didn't score a touchdown. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you just get your points from catching the ball as a running back. It's so much easier. Two catches is equal to 10 yards. That's just like it's crazy. And then those catches add yards. So you get 2 catches and 10 yards. It's just the math is made for fantasy running backs to catch the ball. So
yeah. And I think we talked about it earlier before the show. I feel like you deem Chase Edmonds as more of a safe, 8 to 12 points type of guy. Never going to be like that boom player in your lineup.
Absolutely.
Just safe.
And guess who I also project that way? Kareem Hunt. And guess who I don't project? I'd say Mooney has an option to get a lot of targets. And I think that game 1 against the 49ers should just be thrown out the window. It was a freaking monsoon. They can't throw the ball. You know what I mean? So
right.
I'm not against Mooney. I think the targets from last year still stand with Justin Fields. He had a good end of last year with him. I think that he will be back to form maybe after week 2. He does play the Packers next week, who have a really good secondary. So I'm a little nervous in that matchup. But after that, I think he will be a good option with some upside. So now I feel like I have a better RB2 in fantasy. I have sorry, what was I saying? I have a better flex and the safety wise with Kareem Hunt for Chase Edmonds with some upside in Darnell Mooney. So that's where my mindset was in the trade.
Yeah, I like it. I 100% agree. I just don't like guys that are strictly stuck to one value and that being just rushing. If you can't catch passes, I just don't want you on my team. I just don't.
Yeah. And having Kareem Hunt, here's the thing. If Raheem Mostert went down or something like that, Chase Edmonds is the same value as now. They're just going to put another guy. He's not going to be the workhorse back. That's just not what he is. If Nick Chubb goes down, I have Kareem Hunt, who's giving me the same value, in my opinion, as Chase Edmonds. And if Nick Chubb somehow gets injured, getting 22 carries a game,
oh my goodness!
I have an RB1, so it's I get more upside with him and Mooney, and I feel like I'm getting the same value in the 2 players. So again, I love Nick Chubb. I wish it wasn't that way for fantasy. I really do, but if you don't catch the ball, it's very hard to score as many points as the guys that do.
It makes you wonder, would he catch more passes out of the backfield if Hunt wasn't there? I think the answer is yes, because I think it's so overrated when you say, oh, well, this running back can't catches out of the backfield. You're telling me if you give the ball to Derrick Henry in open space, whether it's a pitch or a catch or a reception, he's just not going to run through everybody? I think it's a little overlooked.
I think the idea of it is not really the pass catching you see on first and second where it might be a dump off or something of that nature. It's where it's third down and you really have to make a cut and beat a linebacker or a defender and get open. And then you have to make a wide receiver-esque catch. That's where they talk about it. It's not that he can't catch the ball. If you did a screen for Nick Chubb, he could grab the ball and run. Things like that.
Yeah.
That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about also who is in on the pass catching downs, Nick Chubb's just not in on third down. That's just he's not. If it's third,
or 2-minute drills.
Yeah, 2-minute drills. That's Kareem Hunt's role. And like I said, if he's not getting 120 yards, if they're stopping the run, you don't want Nick Chubb that week. He's not going to catch the ball. So anyway,
yeah.
Do like Nick Chubb though. I think he's safe. I think he's a safe option.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I think the upside with James Conner's a lot higher. So
I feel like just James Conner is just gonna be that goal line back. Like if they're inside the 5, it's James Conner's show.
No question.
You know what I mean, we've seen it last year.
No question. And who's going to score more points this season? You know, if I ask myself that, who's going to score more points, the Cardinals or the Browns? I'm going to put the Cardinals. Yeah. So I want the guy that's going to be the 100% goal line back and the pass catching and still get 15 carries a game and is going to be in a better offense. So
yeah, I 100% agree with your reasoning. I like it for your overall roster. It makes sense.
Yeah. Again, the bias. I love this show because I get to be biased and explain every reason why I did it right, and I have no backup from the other guy, so it's awesome. But no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thanks again for listening to the Fourth and Long podcast where your championship advice came at no price. My name's Nate Young. Have a good day, guys.
Have a good one.